Good afternoon. I'll tell you, it is Monday, October 21st, 2013. And a couple days prior to, we just got obliterated by this unbelievable Florida State team. The score was 51-14. And Coach Swinney calls a team meeting on Monday, and he's sitting there at the podium. He has this tennis ball, right? He's bouncing it. And, he's kind of cheesy as it is, so we're trying to figure out what he's up to, And he sits there, and the first thing he says is, fellas, we got to bounce back. And we're like, what? Cheesy, but I'm telling you, it was effective. That ended up being the story of my life. I think when you look at the culture that was created at Clemson, a lot of it is because of a thought process like that. So see if anybody got any hands. We got a catcher. All right, so fortunately for me, though, that wasn't the first encounter of great leadership that I've been a part of. I did grow up in that Virginia Beach, Norfolk area. My dad was in the Navy. That's kind of how we got out that way. And had a chance to be a part of some amazing teams. The first one being the Virginia Beach Mustangs. All right, this team is the first of its kind. It's the first Pop Warner football team. We're trying to assemble a crowd to see what's going to happen out there. And I'm the youngest on the team. So I'm 10 years old. The rest of the team is about 13. And this coach, who's been coaching Little League all his life, just in that rec center out there, decided that he wanted to start the Pop Warner team in Virginia Beach. He assembled some unbelievable talent. If you guys are football fans, we had a guy named Percy Harvin on that roster, a guy named Damon McDaniel. Yeah, we got a Gator in the crowd, all right? So you know what I'm talking about. The guy was special. We had a guy named Damon McDaniel who went to Florida State. We had a UFC fighter named Bubba Jenkins. You had a little 10-year-old Tajh Boyd on that team. And the stuff that I was able to see and witness right there would shape me for the rest of my life as far as what I needed to look for in culture. We went on that first year to go 15-0 and win the national championship at the Pop Warner level. I went to this high school, Lansdowne, Virginia Beach. Pretty special team. First year, 14-1, and I am floating between JV and varsity. I'm just now starting to kind of get my rhythm, and I finally get into this varsity game, right? This is the last regular season of the game. This is the last drive of the game. And Coach Beatty's like, Taj, get in the game. And I get there. We're backed up on like the -20. We got 80 yards to go. We got a running back named Edwin, who's been waiting all year. This guy was a senior. He's kind of been a practice squad kind of guy. And he's like, Taj, man, I'm going to take us all the way. I mean, this guy legitimately put this whole drive on his back. Play after play. 8 yards a pop, 6 yards, 10 yards. He gets us to the 2-yard line. Coach calls another zone dive. And you know what I did? I pulled the ball. I kept it. I scored. I got up, and I celebrated. The rest of the team walked off the field and looked at me like, what are you doing, bro? So I felt sick to my stomach because I never got a chance to tell Edwin I'm sorry for stealing the only touchdown that he would have had of his high school career. So we go from there. All right, the team kind of just dismantled. The head coach had got an opportunity to get a head coaching job over at Maryland. My dad's like, look, man, this is what we're going to do. We're going to go across the water. We're going to go to Hampton, Virginia. You're going to play for a guy named Bill D. Now, this school that I was going to, this school, Phoebus High School, was completely opposite of what I was just at. The school in Virginia Beach, Lansdowne, was more of like something you would see in Beverly Hills. Now, the school I was going to, Phoebus, was across the tracks, and it was a little bit rough, man. I go in there for the first time. There's no windows. Everything is a brick structure. We didn't even have classroom doors. For classroom doors, we had dividers. If you saw a fight, the whole classroom would get knocked down. That's kind of the way it worked. But the high school coach had something different in mind. This guy was already a legend at the time, and I was about to become part of something special. And his philosophy at this time was team me, which is why I got this shirt on. It meant that much to me. It meant that much to that team and to the rest of the city. Big team, little me. It was a selfless organization. Less self, more team. That's the way we did things. We all wore the same shoes. We all wore the same socks. We all wore the same uniform. We all had something greater that we were trying to achieve, and it started by that accountability in that locker room. How can I expect more from a guy than I'm willing to give? That's kind of what the principle was for me as a quarterback going into that situation. So I learned from Bill D everything that I needed to. Look, in Little League, national champion, in high school, first time I step on that field as a freshman, we get a chance to go to the state championship. I go to Phoebus High School. As a starter, I was 43-2. Part of some amazing things, man. So when you talk about culture and how to cultivate it, I got a chance to sit on the front line and see how all this thing was operating. The recruiting story, if you don't know, was a little bit tricky. I got my first offer after my sophomore year of high school by Boston College. All right. Boston College came in, they offered, they opened up the floodgates for everybody else. After that, it was Maryland, it was North Carolina, it was Virginia Tech. I settled on West Virginia at the particular time. This guy named Bill Stewart there. And I get there, and I think that everything is great. I decided that I committed a little bit too early and decided that I wanted to back away from that. So I opened up my recruiting, commit to Tennessee, a guy named Philip Former, who's now the AD over there. And, man, I wanted nothing more than to play in the SEC at the University of Tennessee. You know, he had already told me that we were going to be fishing in this backyard, that I was going to be his guy, that we were going to change everything at Tennessee. Well, 2 weeks after I commit, he gets fired. Lane Kiffin comes in, sits down, eventually calls me and says, hey, I don't think you're going to fit what we're trying to do here. Now, mind you, I'm in the middle of my senior season. I tore my ACL the third game of the season, ended up finishing 12 weeks of the season to win a state championship with my guys because of everything that we had been through prior to. I didn't want to let them down. I knew that I was a team guy. I knew I wanted to be a part of something special. At the time, though, Lane Kiffin didn't think I was going to be that special. So I opened it back up. And I'm down to two schools now, Ohio State and Oregon. Look, the reason I wore number 10 was because of a guy named Troy Smith, right? Troy Smith won the Heisman. I go to Ohio State, sitting there for a visit. Eddie George is walking in there with me. It's a pretty special deal, man. Jim Tressel walks me to the back and says, hey, this number 10 jersey is sitting here. We were going to retire it, but if you come here, it's all yours. The Heisman Trophy, it may come with it next. It's hard to turn that down, right? I'm sitting there eating all this Buckeye candy, this chocolate with the peanut butter in the middle. It's fantastic, bro. And I'm a snacker anyways, you know? So I'm like, man, he got me by the hooks over here. Then I go to Oregon, right? Had another visit. Go down to Oregon. I didn't realize how far it was until I looked at the map when they showed me flying from Virginia to Oregon on Wavy TV 10, which was the new station in Virginia. See, at the time I was working at Busch Gardens, which was a amusement park out there in Williamsburg, right? And by the way, this amusement park where I worked at used to break down all the time. I worked at this thing called the battering ram. Have you seen it? Back and forth like this, right? Well, there was always some malfunctions sitting there, man. So I would get up there, and as the rod operator, it was either yes or go for me, right? So we'd be sitting there, the rod would break down. I had to get on the mic and say, hey, this rod has been temporarily shut down. Sorry for the inconvenience. Guys would be waiting in line for an hour and a half. They would sit on the rod until it was fixed. It was an issue, man, so I had to get out of there, right? So I go to Oregon. We're flying back. Get there. Pretty special deal, man. I mean, they got all the state-of-the-art technology. They got temperament glass, which changes if you touch a button, and it goes from clear to gray, where you can't see inside it. Get a chance to talk to Phil Knight on the phone. I go to LeGarrette Blunt's locker. He has 15, 20 pair of cleats and all the special uniforms. But it was something off, and it was the food, and I knew it was something else, all right? So they take me to the spot, and they say, hey, we have the best Southern food outside of the South here in Oregon. And I knew it wasn't chicken because it ended up being lamb, and I knew it was off, man, but Oregon was cool, all right? So, again, I'm down to Ohio State, I'm down to Oregon, and you guys know what the Army All-American game is? Have anybody seen it, the one in Texas? When I played in that game is where I met two guys that would essentially change my life. And there was Malachi Goodman, who was a D-end, who's from Florence, Roger McDowell, who was a running back, and he's from Sumter. And at the time, I'm pretty much a lock for Ohio State. I'm telling these guys that I'm coming, man. I told Jim Tressler that it was a lock. Terrell Pryor, he calls me like, hey, you coming? I'm like, absolutely. I'm excited about all of this. And then when I met those guys, they asked me something. They said, have you signed anything, and are you actually committed to any university right now? And I said, no. They was like, well, have you heard from Clemson? And I said, absolutely not. See, I had 70, 75 offers, none of them from Clemson. And I'm like, well, why would I come to a school who never recruited me in the first place, not realizing that there's a changeover of the coaching? A guy named Dabo Swinney. So Jeff Scott, who is now the receivers coach and the co-offensive coordinator, calls up my high school based off of the recommendation that Rob McDowell and Malachi Goodman gave me. My high school coach, Bill D, teamed me. He's kind of a hard ass, man. He was from like Scranton, Pennsylvania. Kind of one of those guys, you know, what he said was good, and that was about it, man. So when he told me he was done picking up phones for me, didn't want me to talk to any other schools, that was pretty much it. Jeff Scott calls up, hey, Coach D, we're interested in Tajh Boyd. Can we talk to him? He said, absolutely not. Hung up the phone. Boom. Andre Powell calls, running back coach. Calls, hey, can we talk to Tajh? No, absolutely not. So they go back to the drawing board, and they're like, hey, do we have anybody that has a connection with this high school coach? Turns out it was Danny Pierman, who's the tight ends coach. Danny was like, yeah, I know Bill. I'll give him a call. Coach D calls me and said, hey, I know I said we were done, but I like this guy. If you would like, man, we can have a conversation with him. At the end of the day, no harm, no foul if you don't want to talk to him. So I eventually say yes. And Danny Pierman comes in. He persuades me to set up a visit with Coach Swinney. Swinney flies down to Hampton, Virginia. And as he's walking in, Jim Tressel's walking out. Swinney sits down with me. He says, hey, I'm not that guy. Haven't accomplished what he has. I'm not Mike Bellotti or Chip Kelly. I'm not Bill Snyder at K-State. I'm not Rich Rodriguez at Michigan. I can't tell you what I've done because I haven't. It doesn't exist. There's no track record. There's no resume. There's no wins on the column for me. He's like, this is my first year as a head coach, and I can't promise you that I'm even going to be here. He's like, but I'll tell you who I am as a person and let you judge me off of that. See, the thing is all these other schools had told me everything that they were doing it or had already did. Coach Swinney went with the opposite approach and told me everything that he hadn't accomplished. And said, look, if you come here, we can do something special together. But he wasn't talking to me. He was talking to my mom, all right? So he didn't have to recruit me. My mom said, look, that's the guy you're going to play for. So that's how we got to Clemson, all right? And I'll tell you what, the guy right there and Coach Bill D and Bruce Pearl from Virginia Beach, all these guys that have been in my life have impacted me in ways that I cannot have imagined. And I'm sure you guys have plenty of people like that in your lives as well. Culture is a special thing, man, because when you look at it, you have to figure out how to cultivate it, what makes sense. You have to have a vision, you have to have a purpose, your why, and then you have to figure out a way to get the guys to rally around it. How do I buy in? And so the cool part for me during my tenure at Clemson was that I got a chance to see two different ends of the spectrum, right? I had the crop that was there with Tommy Bowden before me, and I was a part of the new era with Coach Swinney coming in. My freshman year, the year I actually played, we finished the season against the team South Florida. Now coming into the game, we were 6-6, about 500, right? We were facing a losing season, and if we lost that game, that would have been the first losing season in about 15 years or so. And the starting quarterback at the time takes a shot at the rib, goes to halftime. Coach is like, Tajh, you're in. You got to win us the game. And at this point, I barely even know the offense, you know. I've been in meetings all year, sleep, you know. Nobody's been talking to me, so I'm like, you know what? Out of sight, out of mind. That's kind of the deal. And I get in the first drive, I throw a dig across the middle and throw an interception. Now I'm having a full-on panic attack because I'm like, Coach, I don't even know the plays. And he's like, well, figure it out, all right? We ended up putting together 2 consecutive scoring drives to get us back in a position for the game. And with about 45 seconds left, we kick an onside kick. DeAndre McDaniel catches it at about 9 yards. Now, to recover an onside kick, you need to catch it at 10 in order for it to be eligible for the next team to receive. We miss out on that. So we lose the game. I'm in tears, man. Daquan Bowers is walking me off of the field. You know, I'm heartbroken because, again, man, I had been a part of so many different winning teams that I actually didn't even realize how to lose yet. And at the end of that game, we're sitting in that locker room, And there's a lot of emotions going on. Again, these guys who were seniors who didn't necessarily understand what it meant to be a part of that loss, to be a part of that losing season, who never saw it for themselves coming in, didn't know how to respond. So these guys who were leaders at the time were getting up and saying, hey, these coaches are going to promise you all this. They're going to tell you that you're going to be a champion. They're going to promise you that you're going to go to the NFL. And one of the guys said, I promise you that none of that's going to happen while you're here. Kind of stink the room up a little bit, And Coach Sweeney didn't really have much to say at the time. We go out of that locker room, we go into the offseason. Coach Sweeney calls a team meeting. And he says, look, you heard what a couple of the guys had to say. He's like, I'm here to tell you something different. We can start this whole thing fresh. We can create something from the ground up, but you have to trust me. And Coach Sweeney walked into every meeting with a sign that said, believe. We had to create a whole new culture. And it was tough because we had a bunch of guys who didn't believe, and we had some guys that did believe. Fortunately, the guys that didn't believe were already on the way out the door. Right? So we were able to start this thing from the beginning. Whole new class, whole new crop. The next 3 recruiting classes were going to be the most important for the history of this program. So that offseason, man, it was a grind. We wanted to be something special, man. We wanted to create something that didn't exist. And the cool part for me is that Coach Sweeney allowed me, as a redshirt freshman, going into my sophomore year, to sit in on the hiring process. We had just lost the offensive coordinator at the time, and we needed a new guy. So they bring in Ralph Friedgen from Maryland. They bring in a couple other guys that had been head coaches and OCs at different universities. And then there was this other guy, Chad Morris. Chad Morris at the time had coached 1 season at Tulsa. And the years before that, he was at the high school ranks. Had done a lot of good things, but hadn't really had a huge track record. And he was just he had this optimism about him. He had this energy about him. The coach was like, what do you think? And I was like, I like the guy. So the fact that I could sit in that room as a redshirt freshman going into my sophomore year and be able to help him make a decision like that told me how confident he was in my abilities to lead this team. And showed me that at the same time, we're going to win and fall by what you do as a quarterback. Chad Morris comes in. He changes everything, the whole offense, the whole philosophy. I thought I had a good spring going into that year. It turns out it was a terrible spring according to him. And he sits me down as spring ball ends going into the summer and says, hey, look, I know you think you did well, you didn't. He was like, as the quarterback, man, look, you're either going to figure out a way to get it done, you're going to find a way, or I'm going to find somebody else that will. And that's what he told me. And that whole offseason, man, I stayed at the facility. I studied. I got my receivers. We crafted. We had to find a way to master what we wanted, had to master that offense and figure out a way to make it work during that season. Because it wasn't just our jobs on the line. It was Coach Sweeney's at the time too. Obviously, here in the state of South Carolina, there are no pro teams. You got Clemson and you got Carolina, and that is it. So if you have enough stretch of a losing season, right, string them together, you're out of there. We knew that. So the first 2 games, we didn't necessarily show that. We played Troy and Wofford, and at both games, we were losing at the half. I can remember that Wofford game like it was yesterday, man. We're sitting there. The first half was okay. I threw 1 touchdown, but I also had a pick and I had a fumble. And I was sitting in that locker room. I got Coach Sweeney yelling in my ear over here, got Chad Morris yelling in my ear over here, and I got the defense looking at me like, what the hell are you doing out there, all right? Second half, we picked it back up, though, right? Finished that game. We resurged in this new energy. Now, the next 3 weeks were the most strenuous as far as my duration went. We had Auburn, we had Florida State, we had Virginia Tech, all ranked teams. If you looked at it on paper, we didn't stand a chance. But obviously, as you guys know, we got a chance to string together those wins right there, win those 3 games, and put ourselves in the position to be a front runner for the ACC championship. So we went from 6-7 to winning the first ACC championship in 20 years in a matter of a year. Things can happen, man. Things can change when you talk about culture and what that means. As a leader, there's a difference between that and authority, right? Authority is a position that you're granted. You're gifted it, right? On paper, you're this guy, right? You have total control over everything that happens, but that doesn't necessarily mean that people are going to follow you. Remember, as a leader, you got to lead by example, one, and you got to lead by loving, all right? You got to love your guys. You got to love the women, right? Because it's not just guys in here, obviously. There's some women in here, so I got to make sure I put that out there, all right? And when you talk about fire departments, again, the risk is a little bit different. I'm not going out there on that football field and risking my life every time I step out there. I'm not being a public servant and going out there and helping that person who needs CPR. But the continuity of the team and the structure of that is still the same. It's the same thing. One of the things we created when I was at school was accountability teams. Because in team settings, it's all about the abilities. Responsibility, accountability, reliability, dependability. Those abilities right there. Look, if you're responsible, well, you can kind of craft up your own actions, right? If you're accountable, you hold yourself to a standard that nobody else will hold you to. If you're dependable, that guy beside you knows that he can trust you. That's what it's about. So what we did was have teams. We had 6 teams. Each of them had a captain. I had a team. Spencer Shuey had a team. Sammy Watkins had a team. And what we did was have a draft. If you're the last pick, that means what? You're the most likely to mess up, right? And we didn't really want you on the team. So it's kind of an eye-opener for a lot of these guys. They thought that they saw themselves in this different light, but the rest of the guys on that team didn't necessarily see it that way. And if one person was to mess up, it impacted that whole team. And as you guys know, especially in the firefighter world, all it takes is that one person to disassemble everything, right? How do we build strength and camaraderie within that unit? Let me give you a visual real quick. Everybody eats fruit, right? We're in South Carolina, everybody eats peaches, I think anyways, all right? You got 2 peaches. One has mold on it, one doesn't. If the one that doesn't have mold on it is connected to the one that has mold on it, it's only a matter of time before that one gets moldy as well, right? So we had to cut the arm off and figure out where our weak points were and where the bottlenecks were as far as what we were trying to accomplish. And that was the tough part because there were guys who were very well talented who can go out there and technically get the job done, but it was more about them than it was about that team altogether. And that's what we didn't want to happen. That's what we didn't want for our organization, for our team, and for the development of the program. And it started from the top down, from the president of the university all the way to the person that's just cleaning up on the outside. Because at the end of the day, all of those people's roles, when you add them up collectively, are important to the structure of what we're trying to accomplish here. And that's what the standard is. All the teams that I had on had a mantra, and I'm sure you guys do as well. You guys got a firefighter creed, you got something that you live by, you got something that you stand by. In Little League for the Virginia Beach Mustangs, it was the Mustang way. It was integrity, it was honor, it was accountability. In high school at Phoebus, it was team me. Team first, me second. At Clemson, it was best of the standard. And best of the standard meant something different for everybody, but one of the things that we all realized was that I needed to be at my best at all times. Not the next person's best, not her best, not their best, my best. And if I'm at my best, collectively, if we do that as a team, we got something pretty special shaking up over here. And that's what it was about. How can I master the art of leadership if I first haven't mastered myself? When I obviously had a very nice stretch from Little League on up to college, accomplished a lot of different things, man. First when I graduated my family, 3-time all-conference player, first-team All-American. And I thought I set the world on fire. Went to the NFL draft, got drafted in the 6th round, about 5 rounds later than I thought I should, all right? And I can remember, man, on draft day, it's supposed to be a happy moment for you, and I saw about 17, 18 quarterbacks get drafted ahead of me. I'm like, why did this happen if the year before, after the LSU game, I was supposed to get drafted in that first-round pick? Well, it didn't shape out that way. And so I let that affect me, man. And I went to training camp with the Jets, and I went in with a lack of confidence, man. I forgot to lead, you know. All these things that had made me successful leading up to it, forgot about it. And went to the Jets, played one preseason game, thought it was a fantastic game. Went 7 for 11, 109 and a touchdown. The guy I technically was competing with, well, he didn't fare out so well, but he still made the team. And I could remember getting called into the office, right? They said, look, we're going to give you a call on Tuesday. If you don't get a call by 12 o'clock, report to the office, and we'll go as planned, right? You guys are on the team. I get a call at about 11:50, 10 minutes before that 12 o'clock deadline. Just devastated. I walk in there. Rex Ryan isn't sitting there as the head coach. The GM's not there. I sit down with my quarterback coach, and he gives me this pebble, and it says, lean not on your own understanding. And I was like, well, I definitely don't understand this, And give you a black trash bag, tell you to fill it up, and that's it. You hit the road. You got to take that walk of shame to that locker room with the rest of those guys. I got Mike Vick over there like, yeah, what happened? I'm like, it happened, I don't know what you want me to tell you. The Grim Reaper got me, and that's what we call them, the Reapers out there, right, when you get cut. And I remember getting on that interstate and calling my mom, and I'm like, she's like, what's going on? I couldn't even breathe, couldn't even talk. And I'm like, I didn't make it, I'm devastated, man. I'm listening to Hank Jr. the whole way down. I get 2 speeding tickets. And you got to understand, man, like, I've always been, I started the season off at about 220, got to the end of the season about 235. That's kind of how it shaped out, but that's because of our eating habits at Clemson. It's Chick-fil-A everything, ribs from Sardi's, the whole bit. But, this coach, before training camp, was like, look, I want you to drop 20, get to 210. I hadn't been 210 since high school. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to do it. So I got up at 3 o'clock every morning. I only ate salmon. I only ate chicken. I only ate broccoli. I don't really like too many other vegetables, so that's kind of where we stand, all right? I'm just now starting to eat zucchini and squash, so we're figuring it out as we mature. And I do everything I can to get to that position. I get to training camp, and I'm first in line, and I'm doing everything, man, and I'm sprinting, and I'm winning all the competitions. And for me to not make it, man, it was a devastating blow because I felt like I had sacrificed and put myself in position to be successful. So on the way back, man, I saw Chick-fil-A. We talk about Chick-fil-A. 2 chicken sandwiches, 2 cookies and cream milkshakes. I dove in there, man. And what I didn't realize was that at the time, and it was the start of this spiral that I was going to go on for about 2 years. It's not a very good mental state, man. Was ashamed to go to the grocery store, man. I had this like DVD player in my car that was on my screen. And I know it's dangerous, you guys, but you can watch some Goodfellas going down the highway and take that trip a little bit shorter. And I would be sitting there in the car, not trying to go out in public, not trying to be seen because I thought that I was an embarrassment to what people had thought I would become. And my mom eventually gets me on the phone. It's like, you need to go see Coach Sweeney. Coach Sweeney calls me in there. And I don't think that I'm a very emotional guy, And again, I don't even know what state I'm in mentally at the time, and I'm just crying in this office, He's like, what are you crying for? I'm like, Coach, I don't even know. He was like, look, let me tell you this. He was like, football is what you did. It's not what you do. It's not who you are. It's hard to tell somebody that, though, when they've been working on it for the last, 16, 17 years. You put all your energy, you put all your effort into it. So the transition period for me was kind of rough, man. And he was like, look, the things that you do out in the community, in society, the impact that you have on people when you just have a general conversation with them, those are going to be the things that people remember. And they do. And I'm thankful for that. And that's what's so special about this state right here. And obviously, you guys all have that same opportunity on a daily basis. The external satisfaction shouldn't necessarily apply to what we're trying to achieve on the internal, right? How do I be my best self on an everyday basis? And that's what I needed to figure out over the next couple of years. I had this imbalance in my life, and I wanted to figure out how to balance it. And look, to be honest, just as a disclaimer, I don't know if any of you guys are Zig Ziglar fans. Have anybody heard of him? All right, so apparently I created this chart on my own, but apparently he created something like this very similarly about 50 years ago. So I don't know. Maybe it's my subconscious that got to me, but I was so heavy on the physical, everything that I needed to do on football, that I missed out on the other parts of my life, right? The things that made me whole, the things that made me balanced in general. So there was this thing. The Tajh Boyd balance board, all right? Again, if you go look at Zig Ziglar's circle, well, he has about 4 of them in here out of the 8, but again, for your sake, it's mine, all right? So I was here on the physical and had everything. I took the steps every day because all of these things I do believe make up a healthy life. I'm not asking you to go out there and be a power lifter. I'm not going to ask you to be a bodybuilder. I'm just asking you to be a better self every day. Whether that's taking a step, whether that's walking a mile, just continue to have forward progress in your life on a daily basis. So I was here, but I missed out on the other 3. My spiritual was off. My relational maintenance was off. My mental and brain maintenance weren't there either. I wasn't trying to improve on a daily basis mentally. I wasn't reading. I wasn't surrounding myself with people that can inspire, influence, and help me continue to grow. I had no relationship with the Lord at the time because I thought he had led me astray from all the things that I wanted to accomplish in life, and I had no relational maintenance. I thought I was out here by myself, the only one going through these issues. It turns out, though, that we all go through very similar things because we're all more alike than we are different. When I started to fill the rest of these boxes up, though, life became a little bit more balanced for me. Life became a little bit easier. Started to smooth it out. And what I realized was that what I was doing was creating this perception of what I thought people thought of me. So when I was afraid to go out into the community, when I would get social anxiety, it was because of this default that I had, thinking that everybody else saw that same thing. And actually, there's kind of a thing for it. It's a word for it. It's called the looking glass self-theory. I just figured that out a couple weeks ago, too. So, we're always learning and growing, right? That's kind of the deal. And, again, we're all mirrors of each other in a way. If you have a kid, right, he's at the playground, gets on a swing, falls off the swing. If you look shocked and concerned, then what's that kid going to do? It's going to cry. Because the baby can feel you empathizing with them, right? Or have sympathy for the baby. But if you tell the baby, stand up, you're strong, you can do it, we continue to project out those feelings towards each other, right? So as we're leading our people in the community at home, now this ain't just talking about for the fire department, this isn't just business, this is home as well. It's with your wife, it's with your kids, it's with your husbands. Let those people know that you believe in them, you're confident in them, but you expect more from them. I'm not going to let you become less of who you really are, because then that's not a life fulfilled. You left something on the table, and that's what we can't do. We have no room for that. We got to empty the tank every second, every day, every week, every month, and every year, because that's all we got, the experiences that we have. And the reason that I get so excited to come speak to groups is because this experience isn't just for me. If I was to harbor all of these emotions and these feelings and not share them, then that's selfish as well. So we got an opportunity to do that on a daily basis as well. Whatever you've been through, give that back. That's mentoring. And if you're in a top spot, get somebody to mentor you as well. One of the things that makes Coach Sweeney so special is because he understands what servant leadership is, right? He's serving those guys around him, but he also continues to receive that as well. So it's a revolving door, right? It's a round table instead of a square table. Football, in general, is, in its own way, we're all modern-day gladiators, right? Firefighting, that's a different kind of brave. It's a different kind of beast. And that's why I don't believe in the concept of over-preparing. I see guys at the YMCA sometimes, man, they're running in full fire suits. And people look at them like they're crazy, but what they don't realize is that those people that are doing that, when they do fall, they'll fall to the level of their training, right? So if you over-prepare yourself, quote unquote, you'll never be less than that. Because it's going to be a time where you need to run into that house, man, or you need to run into that building. And if you're not prepared for it, you can't save that person. So continue to take those steps every day, man. Strive for greatness in everything that you do. Never sell yourself short, man, and continue to really build those people around you. I was talking to Matt over here, and we talked about the idea of discipleship and what that means. I've been fortunate, man, to have been able to mentor every year consistently about 10 to 12 quarterbacks throughout college football. I talk to them from the day they get on the campus to the day they graduate to the day they start picking agents. And we go through everything because it's important. It's important for me to take those experiences that I had and give it back to them so that they don't have to necessarily go through the same things that I went through, or at least see some of the warning signs. Same thing here, right? If you're talking to your troop, you're talking to your guys, everybody may not be listening, but that conversation at that time may not be for everybody. They might not have matured up to that level yet. But it only takes you to impact 1, 2, or 3 people, because you, again, don't realize that sphere of influence that they may have later on. When we talk about Christianity and guys that have led people to Christ, I always think of a guy like Joel Osteen, right? He's pastored to millions of people, but all it took was that one person that ministered in his life, not realizing what he would become. It's the same thing here. If you want the community to be better, talk to that one person. Let them realize how special that this relationship will be and how important that this relationship for mentoring is. If you're a teacher, I'm telling you, I'm sure we got some teachers in here. We got 1. Anybody else? We got 2. What you say at school does not go in vain, right? It may feel like it sometimes. I'm sure it does. I can promise you it does. But there's always, again, those few people in your life that you remember for everything. Mine is a 3rd grade teacher named Miss Welker, right? Look, I haven't talked to Miss Welker since the day I graduated from that elementary school. I try to find her, try to Facebook stalk her, can't find her. But I just hope that she knows that she made an impact on me and that I'm continuing to try to pay that forward in society on a daily basis. So I'd encourage you, if there are those people in your life that have done that have mentored you, that have counseled you, that have helped you become the best person that you possibly can be, reach out to them and let them know that it wasn't in vain. Coach Sweeney said one thing, and he always said it, and I'm sure it probably wasn't his, but it sounded like it was his, right? And he said, I'm going to do all I can while I can, so when I cannot, I will not wish that I would have when I could have. It's kind of long, right? And it rhymes too, so it's pretty good. One more time. I'm going to do all I can while I can, so when I cannot, I will not wish that I would have when I could have. Let's empty the tanks as much as we got. Let's continue to pay that forward. Let's continue to build culture. Let's continue to build team and leaders. Don't ever fear that somebody's going to take your job. Because if you do, well, you're not really meant for that job. Be confident. Be strong, man. Continue to take those steps every day. And realize that what you do, what you say, how you lead, it all matters and it's all relative. Always lead from the front. Never expect more from somebody than you're willing to give. If you're going to jump out there, be on the front line with them so that they can see it. I'm going to open it up for some questions. I'm sure we got some questions. And I'll just be as honest as possible going into it. If not, I'll give you like 4 more stories. I'm going to give you 6 more if you don't ask anything, so let's keep going real quick. Anybody, anything. So right now, I got a nonprofit called the Tajh Boyd Foundation. It's in the Greenville area, the Nickeltown area. And again, what we do is go out there, we become a feeder system for other organizations that are implementing and developing leaders within that community, because that's the only way that place will grow. So we were able to give a grant for about $10,000 a couple weeks ago, We got some more cash to spend as well to give out to these other organizations. But again, it's taking those experiences, the fortune that I have, and making sure that we continue to give it back. I'm in real estate as well. We got a project going on in Clemson right now called Lakeside Lodge Clemson. It's a pretty cool deal, man. It's the first development that I've ever been a part of. And there's a team there as well, right? A rising tide raises all boats. So, what we're doing at Lakeside Lodge directly relates to Oconee County as well, right? So it's bringing employment, it's raising the tax base, it's doing all these different things. So I'm not just selling and I'm not just raising. I feel like I'm included in part of that area as well. So it gives me a greater appreciation for what I'm doing. And I read at Dr. Seuss Week at all elementary schools. That's kind of what we do. So, yeah. Anything else? Football, life, whatever. Anything. Am I doing anything at Clemson still? Is that what the question? Yes. Yeah. I'm like the most unofficial official employee of the university. So I'm not necessarily on payroll, but they called me. They need something done. I get it done, man. I do spend a lot of time with the guys. And a lot of that comes back again to, look, when I first stepped on campus, the first two people that I met was Jeff Davis and Woody Dantzler. Woody Dantzler said, look, I'm always being in your corner. He stopped by the office yesterday. He said, how can I help you, right? How can I be of service to what you're trying to accomplish and what you're trying to do? I take that same emotion, I give it back to those guys as well. So some of the kids will come over for dinner. We'll talk, we'll fellowship, we'll walk through the whole process. From girls to graduation and everything in between, man, we try to navigate through it. We try to figure out the best way to make sure that they're living a pretty successful life. What's that? Man, so first half I was on the sideline with my guys enjoying it. The second half I was drinking a bunch of Woodford up there, so it was a good time, man. Look, man, all right, so quick story on that. All right. So there was that whole situation, that ordeal with Kelly and Trevor, all right? I felt how I felt about it, right? Thought that it could have been handled a little bit better, and I voiced that publicly, all right? So there's always gonna be a couple guys that reach out to you, and since I'm on all social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, I essentially said that they couldn't win the championship without Kelly on the roster, and I said it, and I own it. Not saying that it couldn't happen, but I didn't think it would happen, right? For the time being, because 3-4 weeks into the season, it just didn't look like they were completely gelled together. But again, that's a new team, that's a new organization. Those guys are trying to figure out how to work together. So I had this guy every week hit me on every social media platform. It was like, still don't think we can win the championship? Every week. Still don't think we can win the championship? I'm like, bro, stop messaging me, man. Like, I get it, And honestly, before that national championship game, I got a chance to break down some film, and I really thought that they were going to win that game. I never thought they would win it in that magnitude, but I think you really did see really just a turn of the tide right there. I mean, Clemson has evolved to that organization so much through the things that they're doing because, again, what we're talking about is culture. When I was at Clemson, I was essentially, from a player standpoint, the lead recruiter. So every top player that would come in, I sat down with them. The Kim Deechees of the world, when Sammy came in, Nuke came in. We had a guy, Raekwon McMillan, who went to Ohio State. I had all the guys that came in who were 4 or 5 stars and would essentially be their guy for the night. So we would go through everything. And since we were trying to build culture, one of the things that was special about that was that, look, the conversations that we had, I mean, it was like it was confidential, right? But I would sit down with Sweeney the next day, and he would ask me, does this guy fit what we're trying to do here? And it was either yes or no. And when I look at a guy, or I look at some guys like Christian Wilkins or Dexter Lawrence and Cleveland Farrell and Austin Bryant, the reason for those guys coming back to the school wasn't so important for necessarily the national championship, but it meant everything to the culture of that team. You get a guy like Xavier Thomas or a guy like KJ Henry. If those guys never come back to school, they may not necessarily know what leadership looks like. When those guys came back to school, they got a chance to see it firsthand on how they need to act, function, operate in order to keep this thing running the way it is. And when you see that, they can go out there, disperse, grab the players that they think fit the program, fit the culture, and continue to build the way they're building. And that's why I don't think that the program is slowing down, because now they have the recipe for success over there. And they'll keep doing that. Yeah, man. So we got 4 group messages going on. One is real petty, all right? Nobody talks about anything, but we all stay in constant communication. The one that's petty, we won't really talk about anything. It's Andre Branch, it's Jarvis Jenkins. It is Brandon Ford, the tight end, who actually called the 4th and 16 play. It's Nuke Hopkins and a guy named Quanah Christian and Jerron Brown. And that's that group. Then we have a group who legitimately, we have pretty much a prayer circle every morning. So some guys organize that. And essentially, it's a men's group just over the phone. We talk about all of our problems in life and how we need to continue to lean on God to make sure that we're functioning the best way we know how. Because now a lot of the guys, man, they have kids, they have families, and we're all trying to figure out how to navigate through that as well. So it's cool because, again, we're not just going through it alone. We're going with those guys that we went to battle with all the time. So it's a really special group, man, a really special thing going. And, we still keep each other accountable, man, on a daily basis. So pretty special. How many does Alabama have? What, they got 9? Do you know? I think so, yeah. Why not, right? Yeah, again, man, Coach Sweeney, so the condos that we're selling, they're not cheap, all right? It's kind of the thing, all right? But it's an investment property, right? Coach Sweeney just got that lucrative contract. Everybody, I'm assuming, saw. So he's like, hey, I want you to come talk to me about some real estate. Walking him through everything. We're talking through the whole process. He's like, you think I can get a discount? I said, a discount? So he just got $93 million. But, Clemson, man, I tell you, I don't think he's going anywhere. I don't think the program's going anywhere. I don't think you have to worry about Brent Venables because he's a one-of-a-kind kind of guy, you know. I took some people on a recruiting tour one time, and he was over there doing some back squats. And I was like, Coach V, he yelled across the room. He walked over. He had foam coming down his mouth from the pre-workout that he took. And I don't necessarily see him wanting to be in front of the screen all the time because, you know, look, as a head coach, I mean, you're essentially in politics as well. That's kind of the way it shakes out, man, especially when you're in that situation, you're in that light. And Coach Venables, look, he loves his guys. He loves what he does. And I don't think he wants to change it. And he's getting paid handsomely to do that. So don't think that Clemson's program is slowing down anytime soon. Obviously, when you look at what Trevor has done, how many years he has left, when you look at the guys in between there, and then you see DJ coming there from Hawaii or California. I keep saying Hawaii. I know he's Hawaiian. California. This thing is going to keep rolling, man. And, again, it's because they go out there and grab those guys that they know will want to play with them and keep those guys accountable as well. So, yeah, I think this program is just getting started. We say the same thing every year. The best is yet to come. That's kind of where it's at right now. So I'm excited to see how everything unfolds. Nothing. All right, so let's see what story I can chime up over here. All right. 4th and 16. Everybody knows it? For the most part? Is that a yes or no? All right, we got some close people, so they know what it is. All right. So the 4th and 16 was essentially a 2-minute drill. We were backed up on like the -15, and we needed 85 yards or 60 yards to get a field goal position to kick and win the game. The thing is, we prepped for that moment for the last 3-4 years, that if we were ever in that situation, we would know how to handle it. A few weeks prior to the 4th and 16, we had 2-minute drill at practice. And Coach Whitney gives me the scenario. He's like, hey, we got 2 timeouts. We got 65 yards to get a touchdown and win the game. That's kind of how we always end the practice over there. Doomsday preppers. And I'm like, cool. Get the scenario, get the huddle for my guys who go out there to the field. We get 2 plays in, something happened, there was a malfunction going on. I had to call a timeout. Boom, so I burn 1 timeout. I get 1 left, right? We drive down, we get over to 50. I try to call another timeout. I guess he thought I was Chris Webber because he absolutely lost it, all right? He's like, you called a timeout, we don't even have a timeout. I was like, you just told me we had 2. And he's like, no. And then it turned into this whole blowout. And obviously there were some choice words there too, man. Essentially I got kicked out of practice. He's like, get out of here. He doesn't cuss, so he actually told me to get the hell out of here. All right, so I walk off the field. I'm like, I'm done, man. I'm so sick of this. It's just like any bad blood argument. Go down to the locker room, pack my stuff up. I go back to the dorm room. He calls me in the office the next day. He says, hey, I reviewed it. I was wrong. You were right. He was like, well, Tajh, man, I'm gonna hold you accountable the way I'm gonna hold myself accountable. We can't end any practice like that. He's like, because I'm leading you, you lead those guys out there. And if they don't see you respect me, then they won't respect me. He was like, whenever we get in a situation like this, let's legitimately sit down, we'll talk about it, we'll walk through it. Just gave me another lesson on leadership. And I was so thankful that those moments like that taught me what that looked like altogether. Because now if I'm ever in a situation, you confront it like an adult. You confront it like an actual human being. You sit down and you work out that problem. And I'm sure it's the same thing for you guys. I mean, I'm sure it gets heated out there sometimes. But again, it all matters, man. It's all relative. I had a kid, fortunately, man, I live in this neighborhood, man. And I've bought all these Krispy Kreme donuts from these kids and every flyer that they got from middle school and all these things, so they come knock on the door. But one kid was like, hey, I got a lacrosse game coming up. It's on Saturday at like 7:30 in the morning. Can you come? Guy's like 7, 8 years old. And I was like, sure. The guy doesn't really have a father in his life, And so he didn't really necessarily know how to handle certain situations. So he gets out there, he sees me, he gets excited. And he's the best player on the team, man. He's a really, really good kid. But he gets out there, he hits the kid, wasn't on purpose. Coach kicks him out of practice. He starts throwing his gloves, throws his stick, throws his helmet. And that was my opportunity to give back what Coach Sweeney gave to me back to him. I sat him down and I said, look, you're the best player on this team. But it doesn't matter if you don't know how to compose yourself, right? If they see you act like that and you're supposed to be the best player on the team, then how do you think they can act? That's all relative, man. So those experiences that you have, again, they're not just for you, they're for everybody. You make sure you continue to just give that back, man, to the community. Because that's the only way that things are ever going to change, man. If I'm here, then I'm going to bloom where I'm planted. And that's what it's about, man. So when I came to school here, had no inclination that I was going to be here. I did think it was very much a farm town when I got to Clemson, right? I actually do hear roosters in Powdersville. I hear the cows mooing in the morning. I'm like, what am I doing here sometimes, right? I should be in L.A., or Vegas. I've never been to Vegas, though, so, I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing, all right? And when I'm here, I start to realize, man, like, I'm just going to be present in this moment and try to figure out the best way to make myself useful. So got to Powdersville, jumped on like 2 boards immediately. I was trying to raise some money for some things, so if you guys want to give some money to the Powdersville Y, let me know. If we get you guys signed up, squared away. But again, that's the thing that's special with all of you guys. We don't have to be out here and be superheroes or super celebrities to, again, make that difference. You guys can do it right here in this room. So you continue to do that. Live with honor. Continue to leave legacy. And that's the thing. Legacy is not something that you can just go out there and seek. It has to naturally come by the things that you're doing on an everyday basis. But that's something that we all have an opportunity to do. So always, it's team me. Big team, little me. More team, less self. Be selfless out here. I don't know how to really end speeches, so just gonna end it like that. Boom. Yeah, there we go. Oh yeah. Also, is the mic still on? Yeah. I'm gonna throw this back to the Raptors over here. Are you ready? Boom. We still got some juice over here, baby. Yeah. But yeah, actually, I was gonna give this out, man, but I paid like $150 for it, so I'm gonna keep it. So, but look, if you want it, you know what? Who can say the Firefighter's Creed? Somebody. Nobody's gonna say the Firefighter's Creed? I'm gonna keep it then, you know? Appreciate you guys, man. Appreciate you.